they had the casket on board the Southwest Airlines craft. I talked to him for 3 hours flying back from that video shoot in Las Vegas with Jesse Ventura. And he talked about how he was going into his 9th tour since 9/11. 9th tour. And how his buddy had been in 9 and finally got blown up by a roadside bomb, or was it in Afghanistan? And he'd been in Iraq, hadn't been with his buddy in over a year. And again, the Austin police know about this because they were all there to pick up the casket and take it to Fort Hood with a big parade or whatever. If you really cared about the troops, you wouldn't have them serve tour after tour. And I said, well, what's it like being an Air Force MP? He goes, in these countries, we're the ones that have to drive the convoys through. We're the ones that have to guard the bases. We're the ones that actually get attacked all the time. And he said, now, in all branches of the armed service, you're facing combat. And it's not like there's the enemy, we're going to go have a big war with them. It's the worst type where it's just extreme boredom, and then somebody starts shooting at you or throws a hand grenade. Or this is what's going on. So the system knows you're going to get a percentage of these vets that come back who are going to engage in all this violence, and they're going to use those guys to demonize all the veterans and go after all the veterans generally and try to restrict them from having the Second Amendment. And that's already happening. It's having people with no criminal record, no problem. They're going in to buy a gun they can't. But the other group of PTSD people, they're being taken and made, actually, in many cases, the really bad apples, they're being made police. And so they're the people that you pull over, that pull people over, and you see the person barely even ask a question, and the cop drags them out and starts beating them, or shoots them, or tasers them, because they're crazy. And they have an appetite now for violence just to feel normal. Because if you've been involved in violence over and over and over and over and over again, you expect for it to happen some more just so you feel normal. In fact, guys, you can pull it up. Just type in record number of suicides. The last time I saw the number 2 weeks ago, it was 7 times any previous number. 7 times. And so the system knows they're all coming home. And so they're going to have one group of veterans and the police attacking another group of veterans who are, quote, civilians. And it is just a nightmare scenario. But the big nugget here, the big point I want to make here today is this. Under NDAA, they've already had it going on for 6-7 years. Regular Army at checkpoints. Army helping cut people out of cars. Army doing all this PR stuff so the rollout can be sold to the public. But in the real manuals that are now been released to everybody, it's all about veterans, gun owners, libertarians, conservatives, Ron Paul supporters. It's the veterans that have got their act together. It's the veterans that know who the enemy is. You are the enemy. And you are going to be blamed and demonized for these other people, the people that are throwing the puppies off the cliffs, the people that are blowing up the Iraqi families. Those, how do I know this? From constant research. Constant research. I remember how they hired people for Abu Ghraib. It came out in the Army investigation. The federal government went around in 2002, in the build-up to the war, and then in 2003, right before it started in March, and would hire former federal and state guards who had been caught abusing people and raping people. And they said, you want another job? How about triple the pay? So see, the government is looking for the bad guys that'll bomb in Oklahoma City, that'll rape a child, that'll do this kind of stuff. And they're trying to get rid of all the good people that are in government, just like Stalin and Hitler opened up the prisons and put criminals in charge. This is what they're doing. But I got a message to all those people. What do you think is going to happen, and it's already starting, when the system tries to crack down on lawful gun owners and veterans? It is an unwinnable scenario for the globalist if you think that they care about the troops and police. They don't, though. They want this country to descend into a banana republic. They've planned the whole deal. They want the civil insurrection. They think they know how to deal with it. And this is one of the false flag events they want, is a civil war in this country, and we've got to avoid it. They know full well when they send people off to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 tours, you're going to get a lot of unstable people coming back. All right, let's go to the calls. Who's been holding the longest? Janice and then John. Janice in Texas, thanks for holding. Welcome.
Hi, Alex. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you.
My New Year's resolution was to give up C-SPAN, and I was editing through like all these meetings that I hadn't watched before, and I came across something so absolutely horrifying. It left me trembling. It was the title of the meeting is the Joint Chiefs of Staff Expansion Proposal, and it was about giving the National Guard a chair at the Joint Chiefs and what the National Guard could do domestically under Title 10 and Title 32. And then they're all fighting, and Lindsey Graham, it's Lindsey Graham's turn, and he is so completely high and crazed out of his mind. His eyes are like glass, and he keeps licking his lips, and his shoulders are jerking back and forth, and he's like yelling at the Joint Chiefs and telling them it's not up to them, it's up to him. And anyway, it's just something.
Well, I'll tell you what was the date of this? Because they are under Northcom, rolling National Guard, not giving them a seat, but actually taking them away from the governors and the legislatures. And that's in the John Warren Defense Authorization Act 07. They admit it's for civil unrest by the legislatures. They're saying, legislatures, if you try to exercise your 9th or 10th Amendment, we're going to occupy you. And that's why they now have the puppet 10-member governor and the rural council. But I've seen Graham, and if he's not on amphetamines or cocaine or something, I'm an Easter bunny. If we're going to play the clip again tonight where he talks about how he wants people scared and you bet it's for citizens and the NDAA, and looking at his face, he looks like he's not drunk, because I've seen one where Lieberman looks like he's drunk. But Graham looks like he's hopped up on something. It may just be power, though, Janice.
I'm not sure. I've been on the road with rock and roll bands my whole life, and I've seen High On hopped up. I mean, and he is hopped to the nines. It's like Criminal Insanity got together with cocaine and had a baby and named it Lindsey Graham.
I've looked at his eyes on TV and up there. He is crazy, sweating and jerking around. And you bet it's for American citizens. I want to be scared. Ha, ha. I mean, I even talked about that last week. So what else happened in this meeting?
Well, what you were just saying, like there was way too much for me to take it all in. That's why I wanted you to have a look at it, because they talk about Northcom. The Joint Chiefs do not want the National Guard, to have a chair there, and they say Northcom is like, part of it that takes care of it, and Lindsey Graham saying no, 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 and basically, this all happened like 2 weeks before they passed the NDAA, and I wouldn't have when you watch
Lieberman and all of them, they are shaking with power trips. Whenever they passed the NDAA in the Senate, Jay Rockefeller was just super excited. It was like, I mean, they know what they're doing. I've seen famous newsreels of Hitler when he was taking over Czechoslovakia and stuff. They're walking around rubbing their hands together. And give me the date of that so I can pull that up on the C-SPAN archives when we come back. Any other points you want to add? Then I'm going to go to John and others.
Again, the Congressional Budget Office.
Yeah, I haven't really gotten into the economic news or the latest on Iran, or what's happening with the polls. Ron Paul's still in number 1. Politico got caught claiming that Paul was in number 3 when he was number 1 in the poll. They're going to try all sorts of dirty tricks. The Republicans are going to count the votes in secret. The Republican establishment, they are really, really scared. But yes, years ago when I had more time, I was addicted to C-SPAN. I mean, that's how I knew TSA was going to be on the streets 9 years ago. That's how I knew they were going to start making people go through the government to be able to have a job, quote, Homeland Security, because I watched a 2-hour meeting with the whole thing being planned out. And that's what's frustrating, is that the media will debate, say, 5 degrees of a 360-degree system. They'll act like they're debating with the Republican and the Democrat on the show whether it should be done like this or that, but they're only debating one little bitty area that basically does the same thing regardless of what decision is made. And they create these fake consensuses where they have the consensus with all the talking heads debating, well, when do we strike Iran? And then they have debates about it, but never, why are we striking Iran? Or why are we being lied to again? And the controlled corporate media, the dinosaur media, has total disdain for the public. Total disdain. Janice, finishing up, what was the name of the hearing again, and when was it? Because now you can search everything. In the last few months, they've upgraded the C-SPAN website where you can search it with the name and date and find anything, right there on the site, the video, everything.
Yeah, if you just go to cspan.org and type in Joint Chiefs of Staff Expansion Proposal, that'll bring it up. But I think this video needs to go viral of Lindsey Graham, because he's also, when he's doing his jerking like craziness, he talks about, national like emergencies, disasters, hurricanes, whatever, using the Guard on the citizens, as a battlefield. I mean, it's insane. I was so scared. I'm sorry, I'm just so worked up, I can't even believe I found it.
Well, listen, it's like a caller called us a few weeks ago and said, you haven't seen the debates where they admit there's a secret torture provision? And I'm like, well, I know there's bestiality in the NDAA. I know it's the Inde Posse Comitatus, a global declaration of war. But no, I didn't know they actually admit torture. And then we went and found the clips they mentioned. And sure enough, it's 4 senators going, we're going to torture Americans and we want you to be afraid. I mean, that's the definition of terrorism, and they were all getting real wild-eyed. Lieberman looks drunk and is licking his lips getting off on it. And they're like cartoon bad guys, and Graham is hopping around on the stage. McCain is hopping around. Levin's all hunched over like a snake. Man, this is super creepy. I appreciate your call, Janice. I mean, you watch these guys, it's not for, quote, Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda works for them. It's for the American people. John in New York, you're on the air. Thanks for holding.
Good afternoon. You hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you for giving me the privilege of speaking to you today. I'm a first-time caller and a fairly new listener. Now, my comment and question is, before I discovered your show and the 9/11 Truth Movement, Patrick Buchanan was my favorite political commentator. Afterwards, you became number 1 and he became number 2 or 3. So my question to you is, did you ever try to contact him and ask him about the 9/11 Truth? Because he knows about the New World Order. He's written books about it. He endorsed Ron Paul. His magazine interviewed Sibel Edmonds in November 2009. That's it.
Well, God bless you. I appreciate your call, John. Look, I've met Pat Buchanan a few times. I worked for his campaign, at the lowest level, handed out yard signs and stuff. Many years ago, I guess in 92 and then 96. So I like Buchanan on a lot of issues, but Buchanan won't commit political suicide. And Ron Paul won't do it either. They've got that clip of Ron Paul being asked by the lovely lady, why won't you cover 9/11 Truth? And he said, well, I'm busy with other things. And, now they're saying, hey, this staffer says that you said it was the government. I tend to think that's probably not true. Plus, the guy ran against him in his congressional seat and is probably a mole. I don't know that, but it doesn't matter. Ron Paul only goes with what he can prove one way or the other. And that's why he hasn't gotten into 9/11 Truth. But he does talk about false flag terror. He came on my show a few weeks ago, and it's been all over the news, New York Times, you name it, and said, hey, the government staged this deal with the Iranians to blame them, for a plot to kill the Saudi ambassador. And the New York Times and others came out and said Ron Paul was insane. Well, we wrote an article showing the New York Times saying what Ron Paul had said.